So when we get to 2 Samuel 11, it says, in the spring, at the time when kings go off to war. Why is this important? Spring comes after winter. During winter, if you were fighting a battle, you would usually pause the battle because winter wasn't a favorable condition for fighting. Battles were usually paused due to the unfavorable weather conditions because it was cold, it would rain, and so it makes it harder for you to actually get all your equipment down. Like it was just an unfavorable season to fight in, and so a lot of people would pause, go back, hibernate, and then come back and resume the fight. And so when it says in the spring, at the time when kings go off to war, at this point, David now sends Joab. If David wouldn't go when there were 33,000 foot soldiers that were fighting against him, why would he go now? Especially because it says they destroyed the Ammonites and besieged Rabbah. You know what it means to besiege? They had finished defeating the Amorites. Now they had besieged them, which means they had surrounded them. Because they had a stronghold, they were in a city that was protected by walls. It was hard for the Israelites to penetrate those walls. And so a battle strategy that they would use back in the day was that they would surround the city so that food wouldn't go in or come out. They would block anything from coming into the city. And the goal was that they would want those people to surrender or draw them out. When you're tired of hiding, when you get hungry, when you get thirsty, when like you guys will either come out or you surrender. So that's what it means to besiege. So it says after they had destroyed it and besieged Rabbah. So it means that they had switched their battle strategy from fighting to waiting. If David wouldn't go out when there were 33,000 foot soldiers and he sent Joab, does it now make sense why David remained in Jerusalem? Because all they were doing was waiting. Now, that was my initial thinking. Like, why would David didn't need to go. He didn't need to go. As the king, he didn't need to go. But I think there's a bigger story here. I think David remaining in Jerusalem was actually more describing his state with God. So it seems like David has sent Joab to finish the job, but because of their city walls, they couldn't penetrate. So Israel deployed a different strategy to besiege them, right? To besiege them. So at this point, Israel was playing the waiting game. Plus, David at this point, I think this is important to note as we get to verse 2, David at this point had 7 wives. David remained in Jerusalem when he was at the time when he was supposed to be at war with his people. So David at this point had 7 wives. That's going to be important here. Verse 2 says, one evening, David got up from his bed and walked around on the roof of the palace. Now, when it says one evening, so it gives us the time of day. It's in the evening. David got up from his bed. Now, why would David had been on his bed in the evening? I think one of two things, at least one of two things. Either David had taken a nap in the afternoon and he was waking up, or David was trying to sleep but couldn't. Either way, he finds his way to the roof of the palace. Why? Remember, this is the spring. Being on the roof in spring, the weather is cool. It is soothing. The sun has already set. It's not hot. The view is amazing. Looking at the skies. Could he have been trying to commune with God at this point? We know that David was a psalmist. So was he looking for inspiration? We don't know. But for some reason, we find that David was on the roof. Could he have been feeling stressed? Couldn't sleep? Possibly using this moment to distress? Is he bored? But as David is walking on the roof, he's walking around. So you can imagine he's not just standing still, but he's walking around. Is he thinking of something? Something bothering him. But as he's walking, it says from the roof, he saw a woman bathing. So you can imagine David walking around and then he notices something. That something was a someone. And that someone was naked. David paused. What? Who that is? Paused. He could see her, but she couldn't see him. So David must have maybe stood beside a wall to ensure that he would not be seen. He couldn't have been in an open place where anybody can just look and be like, oops, the king is watching me have a bath. So David must have looked, and I put here that David did not have control over the first look, but he made the decision to keep looking. You may not have control over the first look, but you have control over the second, third, fourth, and fifth look. If you are driving and you see someone, you couldn't have predicted who you would see, but you can control if you look back and if you keep looking. That was David's mistake here. As he continued to look, his imagination was engaged. It was activated. He saw her and he didn't just see that she was beautiful. He was like, man, she is very beautiful. Meaning that she was close enough for him to see her face. At this point, David had several options. He was definitely sexually attracted to her, sexually stimulated by her, by what he saw. He could have called one of his 6 or 7 wives. Be like, man, let me make this legitimate, man. At least I'm married to these ones, man. Yes. But to him, David is probably thinking, this is fresh. I've already been there, done that. This is a new situation. This is a new mountain to conquer. And so in verse 3, at this point, what David has seen was intriguing enough that he wanted to act on it. You see, there's a difference when you see something versus when you see it and you are going to act on that thing. It means that David had meditated on what he was seeing so much that he had committed something in his heart. The imagination had become so strong that he said, you know what? I want to know more. Now, when he says, and David sent someone to find out about her, the picture I was seeing, because is it that there was somebody on the roof with him? He was a king. Most likely they were guards or people. Or is it possible that David called one of them? Is it possible that one of them saw Bathsheba having a bath? Because how would David have sent someone to find out about her? He didn't know her. So he couldn't have just said, I just saw one beautiful woman, go and find out about her. No, the person he was sending had to have had a description. Who am I going to find? So is it possible that there was someone with David and David called the guy and is like, who is she? He wanted more information. And ideally, the more information they have, the better our decision making should be. For example, my wife was on a website the other day checking out some cookies, right? She's starting a bakery very soon, and she was checking out the competition, and I think it was Crumble that she went on. And I saw the cookies, and I was like, oh my goodness, this look like these look beautiful, man. These look very beautiful, actually. But then she said, man, one of them is like 800 calories. That was additional information. My initial thought was that, man, these cookies look nice. I want one. But by the time she gave me additional information that, man, one is like 750 to 800 calories, I'm like, hey, I'm good. What? In one cookie? I feel like that's what David should have done here. Because when he saw her, it looked beautiful, but more information should have dissolved the desire that he had, the image that he had. And so David sent someone to go find out. Again, which means that David did not know her. Is it possible that this was the first time he was even seeing her? And so when the person he sent came back, it says the man said, so it was a man he sent. The man had gone to do some investigative journalism. Like who's that? Maybe speaking to some neighbors, there's this lady who stays here. Who is she? And the information that man got provided additional information to David. Number one, this mystery woman, David, her name is Bathsheba. And Bathsheba means daughter of an oath. So I can imagine David is like, wow, beautiful name. Number two, and this is where things get tricky. This is when David should have been like, let me show you some. So when he came back, first thing he said, her name is Bathsheba. Number two, she's also the daughter of Eliam. At this point, you see, like I've read this in the past, and these names didn't make any sense to me until I began meditating on it recently. The daughter of Eliam and the wife of Uriah the Hittite. This is important. At this point, the desire in David should have been erased. Let me show you why. And a lot of people, I shared this with a few of my friends, and they were like, what? Some of you know, but a lot of people actually don't know this. So in 2 Samuel 23, it says, these are the last words of David, the inspired utterance of David, son of Jesse, the utterance of the man exalted by the Most High, the man anointed by the God of Jacob, the hero of Israel's songs. Now, verse 8 says, and these are the names of David's mighty warriors. And he begins to list out David's mighty warriors. I know you guys you probably heard pastors preach about Eleazar, son of Dodai, the Ahohites, as one of the 3 mighty warriors. He was with David when he taunted the Philistines, gathered at Pesdamim for battle. There were some where David was thirsty. And it was like, man, I desire the water in Jerusalem. And these mighty men went and killed people just to get this water out for David. And when David got it, it's like, man, you guys you shed too much blood for this water. I can't drink it. And he poured it down. Like, this chapter is listing out the list of his mighty warriors. So when we get to verse 34, we see something. He says, Eliphaz, son of Ahashbai, the Maachahite, Eliam, son of Ahithophel, the Gilonite. Remember, 2 Samuel 11 says that she was the daughter of Eliam, which means that at this point, David should have been like, this is the daughter of one of my mighty warriors. But at the same time, okay, she's the daughter of one of my mighty warriors. If she's single, I mean, things can pop off, man. I'm the king. But here's where it gets crazy, because the guy also says, and she's the wife of Uriah the Hittite. 2 Samuel 23, this one blew my mind. Verse 37 says, Zelek the Ammonites, Naharai the Behorite, the armor bearer of Joab, son of Zeruiah, Ira the Hittite, Gareb the Hittite, and Uriah the Hittite. They were 37 in all. Uriah wasn't a random soldier. Uriah was actually one of his mighty warriors. Uriah was one of his mighty. Do you know what it means? David had 37, only 37 out of all the armies. 37. When David heard these two names, it should have been enough for David to be like, she's out of bounds. The additional information should have purified the picture. You see that there are some, for example, the cookie example I just gave you guys. There's new information that will purify the image that is in your heart. I already saw myself eating the cookie, man. But by the time I saw it was 750, 800 calories, it purified it. Like, I became healthy inside. Like, I became very healthy again. Like, it purified my desires. When David heard that, it should have changed his mind that, Bathsheba is off limits. It's a no-go area. That Bathsheba wasn't just a random woman having a bath. She was connected to 2 out of his 37 mighty warriors. I mean, there's got to be some bro code somewhere, man. Like, and this is why I believe David at this point in his life, I believe, was far away from God. There should have been some bro code here. Like, my men are out there fighting for their nation. They have left their wives behind, vulnerable, but under protection, not to be taken advantage of. But I believe David was sold a lie by the enemy that a lot of people who commit adultery and fornication, sexual immorality, end up embracing. Even though David heard these things, there was something that must have convinced David to still go on. David must have believed that nobody will find out. This is the lie that the enemy usually tells people. You are married, you're supposed to be faithful to your spouse. And all of a sudden you become attracted to someone else. And you're like, should I do it? You are battling in your mind. Should I not? The enemy will sell a lie. Nobody has to find out. If you do it, only you and this person will know. Your secret is going to remain a secret. That is the lie of the enemy. And so David must have believed that if I do it, I can get away with it. Who noticed that it says Uriah the Hittite? Why are they describing him based on him being a Hittite? It means that Uriah wasn't originally Jewish, meaning he wasn't Jewish by birth. He had become Jewish by allegiance. I never noticed that until recently, until today actually. Uriah the Hittite, he wasn't an Israelite. He was originally a Hittite who had now become a trusted member of David. And the name Uriah means Yahweh is light. So it means that Uriah at some point may have even changed his name. Uriah may not have been the name that he was born with, because for him to occupy this sort of position in David's army, he must have pledged allegiance to David's God. And so pledging allegiance could have required him to change his name. This is like an unbeliever, someone who was in a different religion suddenly becoming a Christian and changing their name. The fact that he was one of David's mighty warriors means that he was trusted, skilled, and loyal, because no spiritual outsider would have been given this kind of position, which even makes this betrayal worse. You can imagine someone who has just become a Christian, or not just become a Christian, but became a Christian, trusting everything, and all of a sudden you hear that the leader sleeps with your wife. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this clip and you want to know how to hear from God using the Bible, I'd love to invite you to a live Bible study session that is happening every single day, Monday to Friday, 5 to 6 p.m. EST, where I show you how to not just read the Bible for information, but how to meditate on it for revelation, because revelation is the key to your transformation. Take care. Bye-bye.